Kathy, and welcome back to Kathy's Happy Home and for another Sunday Praise. And we're in part 5 of our How to Pray series. And today we're going to talk about Esther's prayer. Today we're going to look at finding courage through prayer. And through prayer we can find the strength to confront those things that we're fearful of. God gives us courage when we seek Him. So have you ever faced a situation that was bigger than you could handle? Think about it. I think we all can recall a time like that. But how did you respond? We all face situations where we need some extra bravery. So Esther was a queen who faced a huge challenge. Esther was a Jew who lived in Babylonia. Her family had been taken as captives when Babylon defeated Israel. Esther's parents had died when she was quite young, and she was raised by her older cousin, Mordecai. She was a beautiful girl who was also courageous and wise. King Xerxes had gotten rid of his first wife because he asked her to do something wrong, and she wouldn't obey him. His advisor suggested he hold a beauty contest, and this is probably the first beauty contest we read about. And he should choose the girl he liked best as his new wife. So he did this, sending the rest of the girls into his harem, and he chose Esther to be his new queen. But now the Jewish people, including Esther, were in great danger because of an evil plan by Haman, a high official who hated them. Haman had tricked the king into issuing a decree that would allow the destruction of all Jews in the kingdom. Mordecai, Esther's cousin, sent a message to Esther. He urged her to speak to the king and plead for the lives of her people. Esther knew this was a risky request. No one, not even the queen, could approach the king without being called for, and to do so meant death, unless he extended his royal scepter, and that would show that he had mercy toward that person and they didn't have to be killed. So Esther had a choice to make. She could remain silent and let the Jews be slaughtered, or she could stand up for her people. Esther asked Mordecai to have all the Jews fast and pray for 3 days and nights. She and her maids would do the same, and then she said, "I will go to the king, and though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish." So after 3 days of fasting and prayer, Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the palace in front of the king's hall. And the king was sitting on his throne, and when he saw her standing in the court, he was pleased that she had come to see him, and he held out his golden scepter, and of course she didn't get killed. So Esther approached, and she invited the king and Haman to a banquet she had prepared that night. The king was so impressed that he asked what she would like, up to half of his kingdom. And Esther said all she wanted was for them to come back the next night for another banquet. And you can imagine how Haman felt. This was the best thing that ever happened to him. And he went home and he bragged to his family about how much the queen liked him, and she not only invited him one night for a banquet, she invited him 2 nights for a banquet. And the only thing bothering him was this man that he hated, Mordecai the Jew. His wife urged him to build a gallows on his property and have Mordecai hung there. And then he'd be rid of him. He thought that was a great idea, and that's exactly what he did. He was waiting for the perfect time to hang Mordecai. Well, the next night, Esther had another wonderful banquet for the king and Haman. And it was at this banquet that Esther bravely revealed Haman's plan to exterminate the Jewish people. And then she gave them the fact that she also was a Jew. And the king was so upset that he left the room. And Haman got on his knees to plead for his life, but he lost his balance and fell onto Esther. And it was at this point that the king, of course, returned. And he was so furious at the sight of Haman on top of the queen that he ordered him taken away to be hung on his own gallows. The king wasn't able to change the law, but he did allow the Jews to have weapons to defend themselves, all because of Esther's bravery and her dependence on prayer. Even though scared, Esther turned to prayer and fasting before taking action. So let's read our text for today. It's Esther chapter 4, verse 16. Go gather all the Jews to be found in Susa and hold a fast. There's a difference. Hold a fast on my behalf, and do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my young women will also fast, as you do. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I perish, I perish. We see in these words Esther's complete dependence on God and God's strength to take care of the situation. So let's look at 3 key points of this story. 1, prayer should be our first response to challenges. When we face scary or difficult situations, our first step should be to pray, just as Esther did. Prayer should not be our last resort, but the first thing that we do. And number 2, we find courage through prayer. It's okay to feel scared. I mean, we all get scared and upset about things. But when we do, we can always pray to God and ask Him to help us. God understands our fears and is always ready to listen and to give us the courage we need. And 3, rely on God in tough times. When things get tough, we can rely on God to help us. Like Esther, we can face challenges bravely, knowing that God is with us. That's our Sunday praise for today, and I'll be back next week with another Sunday praise. I hope you have a wonderful week this week. See you next time.